What happens when the son of a psychiatrist and evangelical pastor decides he doesn't want the expected parts?
I think the dream was I thought I would end up doing medicine, and I think that's what my parents probably would have wanted me to do. It was a tricky one. I thought that's what I wanted to do until I got a bit older and I realized that my passion lay within.
Today's conversation is not about DJing. It's about courage. It's about approval. It's about becoming. See, Adeniyi is pioneering Afrobeats here in Perth, Western Australia, building culture in rooms and clubs where it didn't always exist, while navigating the weight of expectation at home. What is that one thing you question at home? Practice or belief?
I think just general like relationships between like the parent-child dynamics. I remember going back home the first time and seeing the interactions that, you know, my cousins would have with their parents. One thing that really struck me was the fact that they didn't really speak to their dad. Their dad will go to work, you come home, you greet them, and then it's almost like you need to be out of sight.
We talk about fathers and sons, about choosing purpose over permission, about love, marriage, discipline and identity, and what it really means to become your own man.
What happens is when you don't have those open channels of communication, you know, you never fully get to know each other. I think as a parent, if you don't lead those types of open conversations with your children, there are certain things you might miss out on because they might not feel that they can tell you.
This is one of those conversations that will hit differently if you're a child of a migrant, or if you've ever had to choose your own path. What kind of father do you hope to be?
That's a very powerful question. I want to be the type of father that promotes an environment where my children know that as long as they are at home, no matter what's happened, even if they're, you know, in trouble or even if something has happened, that home is the place that they can always come to.
As the first son, often the wife of the first son becomes the daughter to the mom. You're the only son, I understand.
Yeah.
What's the relationship between her and mom?
We might have to skip this question.
Why? Hi, Adeboii. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I am all right. How was you? What have you been up to, first of all?
Just work. Honestly, just working. It's been a very busy period. So I work in the health industry and there have been a lot of changes. So because of my job, it just means that, yeah, we've been working extra hard, especially this last month. So, yeah.
What's your nature of the job?
So I work for a hospital board.
Okay.
And my job is a combination of, I would say, like project management and a little bit of consulting and a little bit of administration. So our job is to oversee all the projects that are run within a hospital, and we communicate between the hospital board and executive directors, and we need to let them know, you know, when their tasks are due, what they need to do to complete those tasks and things like that. So
if we were to call that job a name, what would that name be?
Well, we call it board support. So we support the hospital board.
I had that job.
It's very niche. It's a very niche job. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Look, for someone that do not know who you are, in 30 seconds, would you like to tell us who you are and why someone should tune into this conversation?
Okay. So my name is Adeniyi. As you've previously heard, I work in corporate health, but I also live a bit of a double life. So I am a creative on the side. I am a DJ. So apart from working in health, I make people dance. And I think you should tune in because it'll be interesting to see how I marry both of these aspects of my life and put them together.
Now, before the DJ, the stage, the nightlife, these jockey stuff,
Yeah.
you know, who was Adeboii growing up?
That's a really good question. I was someone who was always passionate about music. So I played a couple instruments growing up and listened to a lot of music. So growing up in a Nigerian household and a Christian household as well, I listened to a lot of Christian music, and still do. And then I was also involved in church. So I was in the choir from age 5, and I played the drums. And then in primary school, I also picked up playing the trombone as well. So always been involved in music. Apart from that, I would say my interests would be reading. I've always loved fiction, and fantasy and things like that. What else do I do? Growing up, when it came to school, I quite liked school, fairly academic. My favorite subjects were things like literature, which ties into reading. And also I liked mathematics as well, and economics. And that, I guess economics is what inspired this pathway that I ended up taking. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
When did that switch happen? So, of course, for many of us that have been in and around music,
Mhm.
we kind of know somewhere along that line, or about that time rather, that I'll be pursuing a career in music. When did that become clear to you?
To be honest, it didn't really become clear until it happened. So I've always played acoustic music. And when I was in high school, I was in a band, and we would perform a lot of covers of different songs.
Mm.
And then when I got to university, apart from church, I wasn't really doing anything musically. So what happened was, one of my friends started an organization. And one of the reasons that they had started this is because they noticed that in nightlife and in a lot of events, there was a lot of Black music that was being played, but not by Black or African people. So a series of workshops were run, and there were free workshops on how to DJ. Now, I was part of this collective as the treasurer, but I would go to these workshops just to oversee everything. And one day I decided to just kind of listen into how, DJing works and things like that. And one of the reasons I did that was because there was one summer where we were running a series of events, and all the DJs that we usually would book were unavailable. So I thought, okay, if we had someone in-house that could do it, I could just fill in for whoever, for whoever needed, I don't know, some cover. The first time I tried DJing, I was not very good at it, and I didn't understand how it worked. And I guess a couple months later, something just kind of clicked. And I remember DJing. We had almost like a graduation ceremony for all the people that took those classes. And I ended up DJing there. And from there, I had a friend who was running an event, and one of the DJs had pulled out, and I had been asked to just fill in, a very early time slot.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. So it was a bit of an accident, but not very intentional.
What year was this?
This would have been 2021.
It's like 5 years.
5 years ago.
And between that time and today, what kind of improvements have you seen? Because I like to, you see yourself, I've seen quite a few of your work.
A lot of improvement. I think when I first started, I just wasn't really sure where I was going with it. But then, and I remember I, used to just really love music, and that's kind of what got me into it. But over time, I guess I became more confident in my ability. And one of the things that I really loved about DJing is the fact that people who generally wouldn't really have any business being in the same room together would unite because of their shared passion for a particular artist or a particular genre of music. So that's something that I really enjoyed. So over the years, I think the passion has stayed the same, but what really changed was just, I guess, my belief. And yeah, when I first started, I didn't really think that I could make anything of it. And, looking back over the last 5 years, it's so crazy how you sit at home, you come up with, a stage name, and, you create a little email, you learn how to invoice and things like that. And then all of a sudden you're running your own business. So, yeah.
What was that dream for you growing up?
What was the dream?
I'll tell you what, my dad wanted me to be a chemical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm not a chemical engineer. I did engineering, but I couldn't do chemistry. So I think chemistry was for this. So I was like, that dream was for you, not for me.
I think the dream was, I thought I would end up doing medicine. I think that was, and I think that's what my parents probably would have wanted me to do. I don't know. It was a tricky one. I thought that's what I wanted to do until I got a bit older, and I realized that my passion kind of lay within, I don't know, business, and I've always admired entrepreneurial things, and and then I started taking economics, and I realized, okay, this is something that I really enjoy, and I enjoyed the type of thinking that you have to do around how markets work, and how the psychology of individuals and why they have certain buying patterns and things like that. So once I got to high school, near the end, I realized I wanted to go into something to do with economics, but I still enjoyed health, and I think that's where I was conflicted. And it wasn't until my final year of my undergraduate degree that I came across a unit called health economics, and it kind of combined my passion for both health and business, and once I took that unit, that kind of gave me a sense of direction. I went on to do my master's in public health, and I have a background in health consulting, and now I'm working in hospitals. So
I'll go back to the DJ stuff. So when you realized that was something you wanted to pursue, so okay, I'll track back a bit. Your DJ gig, is that a side gig or a business on its own?
I would say it's a bit of both. It is a side gig because I've got my main job, but it also is a business in itself. It's a brand, and it's a business. Yeah.
Well, which would you rather go for? So if you had to choose between your corporate career and DJing full time, let's assume it pays big time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because if you were to set the money aside, there are pros and cons to both of these industries. I think one of the pros of my work in health is that things are fairly structured. Your hours are very consistent. And I do enjoy that. But then with DJing, some of the things that I enjoy are the fact that it's very creative. There's kind of no limit to what you can do musically. You can express yourself by, mixing different genres of music and bringing people together. But the only drawback is, I think, usually the hours that you have to operate. It could be quite late nights, quite early mornings. There are so many variables that can go wrong that are beyond your control. And it could be quite stressful. So I'm not sure which one I would pick.
What was that view on your choice of business? Put it that way.
Well, as you can imagine, growing up in a very traditional and very religious household, I don't think that's something, even till today, I don't think that's something that they have 100% accepted. But
why do you think you've got that reservation?
I think it just goes against, I don't know, their values and their views on life, I guess.
Have you had time to sit with Dad and talk it out?
We have discussed it a few times,
okay.
And we've had conversations where, he's asked me about, why I want to do these things. And I've explained to him about, how passionate I am about music and, bringing people together and that kind of community. But I also understand from his point and from a religious standpoint, I understand where he comes from as well. So.
You feel betrayal will be a very strong word, but not makes very, very subtle word. Do you feel you betrayed them though?
Betrayed.
That's a very strong word. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for a very soft word.
I get what you mean. I guess sometimes. Oh, that's a very interesting question. I don't know. I guess it depends on if you ask me or if you ask them, but I don't necessarily feel as though I betrayed them. In the sense that I believe that DJing is not forever. I think, especially in this industry, I believe I'm on a timeline. I've already started kind of planning for when I stop. So no, I don't necessarily think I have. I just think I may not have necessarily done things on their timeline.
Is there a way to disagree with your parents without dishonoring them?
It depends on what you're disagreeing with them about.
Let's keep it on the subject.
Okay. In the context of DJing, I don't know. I think it's one of those ones where I think you just have to be open and honest with them about it. In terms of disagreeing without dishonoring, I'm not sure. I think if I was to be in their shoes and my child, was in this industry, I think I would try my best to understand. I would, and I would try and, form a united front with my child and understand that, look, if this is something that they're doing now and it might not be forever, okay.
Tell me about that. Tell me about him.
About Dad?
From your view.
What do you want to know? Where do we begin? Because that's a very broad question.
I'll put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a typical Nigerian dad, like all of our dads. Interesting. And sometimes they've got hard stance on certain things. All right. Understandably so, because of how we grew up, how they grew up, the generation, the season they grew up in, and the culture they were exposed to. All right. I wanted to understand him. You growing up under his leadership, all right, growing up in that home, what does it represent? So, law of authority, pressure, protection, all of other stuff.
That's very interesting. Let me think. When I think of my dad, I think definitely a lot of leadership. I mean, he's a religious leader, but also a leader at home. I think one of the words that I would use to describe him is meticulous, I guess. He's someone who does things very deliberately. He's someone who thinks things through. He's someone who thinks about the long-term outcomes of things, and that is what informs his immediate decision-making. He's someone who definitely embodies the idea of, delayed gratification, hard work. And, given his upbringing and things like that, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah.
Tell me something about him, Dad, that most people don't see.
Something that I can think of off the top of my head that most people not necessarily see, but most people don't know, is my dad's actually very good at art, very good at visual art. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he actually wanted to go into architecture, but I don't know if that was an option at the time. But yeah, he's actually very good at art. And I remember growing up seeing a lot of he used to sketch a lot in his notebooks and things like that. And the other thing that he actually really likes, and I guess this is something that we spoke about last year, is he wants to go into things like bird watching. So taking photography of, birds in the wild and nature and things like that. So yeah, he has a very
interesting. He talked about photos. Dad loves photos as well. Yeah, because I've had a few encounters with him. I'm a photographer, so I've got some photos of him.
Yeah,
I had him at the studio and how detailed he was. I mean, I've had a few people come to my studio, older gentlemen. Some are just take me for it.
Doesn't very nonchalant about it.
Some are there's okay, this, and it's very composed, and the photo has to look this. I was like, bro, you're chill. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think I agree with the arts of him being a creative, in that sense, Look, you want to say something?
I was gonna say, and it's very interesting because with his current job, I would say that his job is almost like a balance of art and science. It's not, yeah. So it's very interesting.
It is.
That he's gone down that path.
I'll move further. We'll go to Afrobeat. What does Afrobeat mean to you personally?
It means a lot to me. I think Afrobeat, I don't know how to put it in very few words, but to me, when I think of Afrobeats, I just think of, I don't know, the fact that we are able to share our culture with the rest of the world, not just within Africa, especially with the direction that Afrobeats has taken. It's on a global stage now. Artists from Africa are, winning mainstream awards and collaborating with other mainstream artists. So for me, it symbolizes globalization and sharing our culture with the world.
What impact has it played, personally? What role did Afrobeat play in the becoming the person you are today, you becoming the person you are today, particularly as a DJ?
Okay, so the role that Afrobeats played in me becoming the person I am today, I think Afrobeats really, for me personally, I think it helped with my identity. I think as someone who, loved music but grew up in the Western world, you hear a lot of other genres of music. And I remember the day that I stumbled across Afrobeats and I was excited because it was, something, although I'd never heard it before, it felt so familiar. So I think identity is a big one, and it helped me become confident in being a Nigerian in Australia. And around the time that we grew up, there weren't even a lot of Africans, let alone Nigerians here. So yeah. And I think in terms of DJing, for me, what it symbolizes is pushing boundaries, because when I started DJing, Afrobeats, you wouldn't really hear it in a lot of places, at a lot of events. So for me, in the context of DJing, it symbolizes, pushing boundaries and being different, but also not, being afraid to show your roots or celebrate your roots.
That's very important. In the sense that I guess I've been here you've been here longer than myself. You've been here?
Yeah.
Good. So you've been here for, I don't know,
27 years.
7 years. I've been here just 12 years now.
Yeah.
And I could honestly relate with that, what you've said about growing up and not seeing too many Nigerians, not even Africans. I remember coming here as a student, like in 2014, where you saw a black guy, like, oh, actually, bro, brother, you're trying to get to know this person, because that's probably the one you would, and at the time, it was the only guy I saw in like a month or two. I was like, he was my good part. Then I started seeing other people. And you would agree, Afrobeat has really played this pivotal role in us coming together. And of course, integrating as well, communicating our culture to this way, so you can honestly look, I'm a Nigerian now, because that music you play came from my country.
Exactly. And it's so amazing, the influence of this music. I remember, I think it was 2022, there was an artist that released an album. I don't know if you know Ashake, but yeah, when he released his debut album, you had people trying to learn Yoruba because the music was so good, they just needed to understand.
You did. The first time I heard Ashake's song, I was in the studio.
Yeah.
I was shooting someone, and she said, because I usually ask, do you have a playlist you want to play? So let's just get the mood. Yeah. And she said Ashake. I was like, who's Ashake? Like, who's that person?
Yeah.
Then she played the music, like, okay, it started making sense to me. So this was a non-Nigerian telling me about a song she's heard that I never heard of.
And this is what I mean about globalization. The fact that music it doesn't just stop at music. people are hearing these songs and they want to know more about the culture. They want to know more about the language and things like that. And I think that's so powerful.
Tell me about the role you've been playing. I've followed you. Just won't go silent for those where you work. I'm looking at this guy, he's doing stuff. Tell me about some of the work you've been involved with, the collectives, the projects you're working on, you've worked on the past, you're working on that, that involved Afrobeats.
Okay. Look, when I first started DJing, like I said, there were not a lot of events that centered around Afrobeats and, genres like Amapiano now, which has also had a very, very big influence on the Nigerian music industry. I think some of the things that I've been involved in, I think one event that comes to mind that really helped shape my DJ career is an event called Essence. So Essence has now been around since 2022. I believe this year's, 4 years. Essence was started by a few friends of mine. It has different stages. So when you go into the event, it's like the vibe is like, it's a big kind of outdoor and indoor event. You've got an Amapiano stage, you've got an Afrobeats stage, you've got like a hip hop stage as well. And I think this was one of the events that consistently, promoted Afrobeats and Amapiano. And I think that playing for this event, that's kind of where I built myself and built my brand there. So, yeah.
What's been the acceptance like for non-Africans? What has been the reaction, their response to this music?
Well, it's really interesting. Every time I go to these events, I usually take a mental note of, the different ethnicities that I see, attending these events. And mind you, this is just an eye test, but the proportion of people who are not African that are coming to these events that genuinely love Afrobeats, love Amapiano has increased markedly, And I think that's what's so powerful about this. It's, the uptake is crazy.
How do you feel sitting down, not DJing, you just sitting down and watching people sing to a song that is not in English, that it's in Yoruba, in Igbo, whatever language, yet they're not near being Nigerian. How do you feel when you see it?
I think it's incredible that, there are lots of things that people listen to. There are lots of, not even just music, even, movies or things like that people watch or consume that they don't understand, and they still don't feel stirred, or they don't feel encouraged to go and research it further. Whereas someone has gone and listened to someone's body of work and they have felt compelled to use their own personal time to go and actually look at, okay, what is this guy talking about? What does he mean when he, says this? And I find it amazing. And in fact, some of these people, they probably are more familiar with some of the slang than people from that country. So yeah, it always surprises me, but in a very good way.
Tell me about the business of DJing music. What does it look like?
I think the business of DJing, it depends on what kind of DJing you do, In every industry, you'll have, I guess, sub-industries. So being an event DJ, it looks like a lot of practice, a lot of long hours, definitely a lot of sacrifices, but very rewarding. You get to share the thing that you love with, a room full of people that also have the same passion. You get to meet different people. I've met so many people across the world and across Australia through music. But yeah, so yeah, a lot of, yeah.
How rewarding is this financially?
Financially, again, it depends on, I guess, how good you are and what your resume looks like. I think initially, and look, I still do it because I genuinely love what I do. And I think there's a point that you get to where it's very difficult to continue doing, DJing if you don't love it. But I think initially, yeah, you're definitely fueled by passion. And I think with time, it's one of those ones where it depends on your resume. So as you start building your resume, you do some bigger events, you can, command a higher price. So definitely more financially rewarding now than when I first started.
So if I were to be some young guy wanting to become a DJ, what would be your advice to me?
That's a good question. I think the advice that I usually give, because I do have a lot of young, up and coming DJs, they'll message me. I'll say, you need to find the music that you're passionate about. You need to create a body of work. For example, as a photographer, I'm sure you've got like a portfolio that you might show people. You need to make your mixes. You need to have something, because if you go up to an event promoter and you say, hey, I'm a DJ, I'm really passionate, I want to play at your event, and they turn to you and say, okay, what have you done? If you don't have anything ready, no one will take you seriously. So have a body of work, find the music that you're passionate about, and also find your community. I didn't get to where I am by myself. There were a lot of people who, spent a lot of time and energy to teach me, first of all, how to DJ. They taught me the ins and outs of the business. What a lot of people don't realize about DJing is when you're on stage and you're playing, that is a very, very small percentage of the work that actually goes into DJing. The majority of the work is actually studying the music. You've got to arrange your music before you even go on the stage. There's a whole process for buying and downloading music. Then you put your music on a screen and you can kind of see all the waveforms. You have to mark your music. Okay, the chorus is here. So this is where I'm going to mark it so I can transition from this song to the next song. It's not just going up there and pressing play and pressing pause and doing all of these things. A good DJ will sit down and prepare a set. And then what also makes it really difficult is you can't prepare a whole set before an event because you have to read the crowd when you get there. So usually when I get to an event, I'll usually sit in a corner. I will listen to the songs that the DJ before me is playing to make sure I don't repeat them. But I'm also looking at the mood. I'm looking at what songs people are receiving, what songs people are not receiving. And that is informing what I'm about to play. Because, yeah, a good DJ needs to be able to be spontaneous. Yeah.
You said a few things that got me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back there.
Sure.
I've been to events. I attend quite a few.
Okay.
And I understand what you mean by saying DJ is not just switching music.
That's the
There's
easy
a
part.
lot of maths. Timing, of course, frequency, the waveforms. I didn't know that waveform part of it. Yeah, the beats per minute, you're listening, you're switching. And then there was one someone mentioned to me one of the days, and that got me stuck. It's actually, there are different versions of music.
Yes, thank
There's
you.
one for...
Yeah.
I just put parental control. In my head, I'm trying to remember the words.
Clean. So there's
Clean,
clean,
clean
there's
one.
clean, there's dirty.
Yeah, dirty and...
There's extended introductions. Oh.
I like to talk to me on that one.
And this is why, again, the majority of the work happens before you even get to the venue. So, for example, there have been events that I've played. I recently did one a few weeks ago. So there was this event called Summer Jam. Summer Jam is like a basketball tournament and it's sponsored by Nike. So it's like a community event. So, parents and children, they come, they play, basketball tournaments and basketball games and things like that. So because it's a family-friendly event, when they, booked me, one of the things they said is you need to make sure that all your music is clean. We want to keep, explicit language to a minimum, which means now you've got to go digging. So you've got to find all of these songs and you've got to find different versions of them. Once you get these songs and you download them, then you've got to create, your playlists and things like that. So yeah. And then again, when you get to the event, you also just have to read what's going on and you've got to find the song that sets the right mood.
How do you determine what song? Now you go to music, you go to function, and then DJ is playing, jump into. And then you just switch to one song and then
Yeah.
we're like, oh,
Yeah.
just walk away.
And it happens sometimes. Yeah.
How do you manage that? So how do you deal with that? First of all, when you switch a song and everybody, the spirit is just down.
I think.
Have you ever had that experience?
Of course. Every DJ will have that experience. I think with DJing, it's one of those things. I think it can happen at any experience level, and it can happen at any event. And this is why DJing is so tough, because there are so many variables that you just can't account for. For example, it happened to me a few weeks ago where I was playing at an event that I've played many times before. But because there was another event happening in the city earlier that night, and it finished just before this event started, the usual crowd for this event didn't come. So you can see that the demographic is very different. The type of crowd that came into this venue that night was very different. So the music that I would usually play for that event wouldn't work. So initially I started off with that music because I had forgotten that there was another event that day. And as I'm seeing people are not necessarily receiving this music, I was talking to the promoter and he was like, look, I think it was Fringe Festival that was happening down the road. This is the kind of crowd that you're going to get. And something clicked in my brain. So and then you adjust. So, but I feel like, yeah, you've just got to be able to not get too focused on what's going on the decks. You've got to look up, you've got to look at the crowd, how they're receiving things. And I think there's just an instinct to it as well. You just feel it. You'll feel the energy and you've got to shift something.
How do you understand? Explain to me what beats per minute means. How do you understand beats per minute?
So beats per minute is literally the number of beats in a minute, the number of beats of a song in a minute. So,
and every song has got different.
Yes, but you can usually group genres by beats per minute. So for example, I would say most Afrobeat songs will sit between, let's say, 100 to 120 BPM. Amapiano will sit between 112 to 115 BPM. Hip hop can be anywhere between, I don't know, let's say 70 to 100. So depending on the genre of, the genres of music you're playing, they usually sit within a certain range of beats per minute, if that makes sense.
How important is beats, understanding this concept to the work of the DJ?
It's very important, because if you don't understand how beats per minute works, you can't transition, from song to song. Because as you're, transitioning from song to song, you're literally doing mathematics. So I might be playing some hip hop, or I don't know, and I'm at 70 BPM. I might want to switch genres, and this genre is a lot faster, and it might be at, I don't know, 138. But if I just play the songs at their natural tempo, they're going to clash, because one will be running faster than the other. But you do a bit of quick maths, okay, 70 times 2, that's 140. So I have to push this up 2 to make sure that they will, they'll match each other. So I know that sounds very convoluted, but these are the things that are going through your head when you're playing. So it's very important.
Thank you. What's been the impact of AI on the job of a DJ?
So far,
none.
Not really. They have tried some AI DJs. They're still struggling to transition between songs.
Why do you think they're struggling?
I don't know. I think there's a certain instinct that DJs have to have. And I'm not sure if they'll ever be able to build that into AI.
Can't read the room.
You can't read a room. So it might work for restaurants. I know when I was studying, I used to work at McDonald's, and I know that they used AI for the music that was being played in the store. So for example, when the store was really busy and the AI knew that there was, a lot of sales happening within the hour, the tempo of the music would increase. And then when the store would be quiet, the tempo of the music would decrease. But in DJing, it wouldn't work the same way.
You've never thought about it working? Like no iteration, nothing?
I think maybe it could work in settings where music is not the main focus. So maybe at bars, restaurants. But in settings where music is the main focus, there's that instinct that needs to be there. And I don't think, for now anyways,
It's what happens in the future.
we'll see what happens. Unless you model it after, I don't know, a particular DJ. If you get AI to, I don't know, analyze some of the sets that they've played and things like that, I don't know.
I think that's very crucial because, to be honest, the work of a DJ, it's more than just, like we said, it's switching music. Reading the room is a critical part of it, where you need to look at your audience and understand, okay, this is where these people are. Let's shift it over a bit. Oh, they're here, let's bring it down a bit. Let's switch area, things like that. I do agree. Look, I'll shift gear a bit for, yourself as child of a migrant, why do you think, in your opinion, first generation migrants, kids, first generation migrants struggle a lot with identity?
Yeah.
Why do you think so?
Why do I know so?
Okay. You've experienced it, obviously. So, what's been your experience with identity, first of all?
I think the struggle with identity just comes from the fact that, you're a minority. I think so for context, my parents came here in the 90s. I was born in 99 and, have lived here my whole life. I think it's very difficult when you grow up as a minority. You grow up in a home. Obviously, your parents dictate the culture of your home. But then when you go outside, not everyone is doing, what you're doing at home. And everyone is challenging, something that you thought, or a bunch of things that you thought were normal. And I think that's where it struggles. And then the other issue is people who come from where you come from also don't see you as one of them either. So you've got Australians who are saying, oh, you're not really Australian. But then for me, I've also got Nigerians telling me I'm not really Nigerian. And I think that's also what's very difficult. And then I think what's also very difficult is the fact that, your parents have come to this foreign land and there's almost a fear that culture will not be passed on. So they cling to the culture. But then what I've been discovering is a lot of Nigerians who are living back home, they're not necessarily following the culture to the same extent that my parents or migrant parents are. And they have actually become more westernized than we have. So identity is very difficult in that sense because there's a lot of things happening.
What makes sure it's because struggle you would have experienced? The last episode we released, we titled it's African at home, Australian outside. And it really ties to what you've just said, where at home you're being taught something else, which parents believe is the best thing ever.
Of course.
And they're true to believe so, And then you go outside and you see your friends do other things like, oh, my parents said I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then you get home, you're like, you can't do this. What's been the struggle like? I'd like to understand from someone who's grown up here, that's seen many of those.
It's very interesting. I don't know. It's very interesting. I think one of the things that I really struggled with, and it's the one that comes to mind immediately, I think the concept of like sleepovers, that was a very contentious issue in the house. But I must say that now that I'm older, I actually see where my parents were coming from, and I actually do agree with them and their views on things like that. But just, that was very frustrating, especially because, when you're in primary school, back then when kids did birthdays, they would usually invite, for example, if you're a boy and you do a birthday, you usually invite all the boys in your year group. So when someone would do a sleepover and all the boys were invited, except for me, there's that feeling of just missing out. And I think that's relatable for a lot of people, just, missing out on something that you think is a very normal experience.
What's one thing you've questioned, at home? And parents, kids, this is a question a lot of things. What is that one thing you question at home? Practice or belief?
That's a very difficult one. What have I questioned? I think I've questioned, and this is something that we go back and forth with. I think just general like relationships between like the parent-child dynamics, because, you know, back home, obviously, from what I saw, I remember going back home the first time and seeing the interactions that, you know, my cousins would have with their parents.
Wait, so going back from Nigeria?
Nigeria,
Okay.
sorry, yeah, Nigeria. One thing that really struck me was the fact that they didn't really speak to their dad. You know, their dad will go to work, you come home, you greet them, and then you it's almost like you need to be out of sight, you know? And that's something that I, you know, really have struggled with. And also just general communication. I think, you know, sometimes it's not really encouraged to, you know, talking about your feelings with your parents, or even saying to your parents, oh, look, you know, when we had this disagreement, you know, you made me feel X, Y, Z. Having these types of conversations and yeah, it doesn't seem like it's necessarily common practice or encouraged. So I think that's definitely something that I question.
Do you believe that has created this distance between parents and just us?
Generally speaking, yeah, I think so. I think what happens is when you don't have those open channels of communication, you never fully get to know each other. I think that happens on both sides. I think as a parent, if you don't lead those types of open conversations with your children and you allow them to feel, I don't know, emotionally safe with you, there are certain things you might miss out on because they might not feel that they can tell you. And also as children, if you're not able to understand that your parents were also once young and they are giving you advice based on their life experience and some of the mistakes they've made, yeah, you can miss out on, you know, a lot of wealth of knowledge. So I think, yeah.
How do we encourage that then for parents? Because for many migrants, that's an issue, to be honest.
Yeah.
Coming over here as adults, some of those still are being brought down here where you still can ask your dad certain things. Like, you ask me that kind of question.
Yeah, exactly. And there are definitely some like taboo topics. I think it's, as you know, as parents, I think it's about taking the lead. Because you are the parent, you will have to initiate some of these conversations. And the way I see it, and the incentive that a lot of people should have, is if you do not have these proactive conversations with your children about certain topics, they will come to their own conclusions by themselves. And by the time they solidify their opinions on things, it'll be too late for you to influence them. So you, as daunting as it might be, as awkward as it might be, it's best that you initiate those conversations, or else, especially in this day and age, your child will be subject to, you know, the internet or their friends' opinions, or, you know, the opinions of people who don't actually know a lot about some of these things.
What's one advice you received from your dad that changed your life entirely?
That's a good one. You know what? I think because I'm still young, I feel like there are some things that, you know, I wouldn't say my life has changed entirely. I think this is a good question to look back at when I'm a bit older. But I don't know if it's necessarily one piece of advice, but I think something that my parents instilled in me that I carry on to this day is the concept of the fact that there's always room at the top. My parents have always taught me that if you work hard and you aim for success at something, there will be room for you. Your job is just to put your head down and make the necessary sacrifices, make the necessary commitments, and there's room for you. And I guess tied in with that, like I was saying before, they've taught me the importance of discipline and delayed gratification. And I think that's really important, especially in this generation. I think with the rise of, social media and things like that, a lot of people think that things just happen instantly. You get lots of money instantly. Sometimes if you go on social media, you'll see 19-year-olds who have bought, a really expensive car and a house and things like that. And unfortunately, people think that that's how life is meant to go. They forget that, for example, I think the average age of a first home owner in Australia is like 39. Most people forget that. They forget the fact that 60% of people, I think, under the age of 30 that buy their first home actually rely on their parents financially to get that first home. That's the reality, but that's not what we see.
That's true.
So understanding delayed gratification and understanding the fact that in order to have, nice things,
Gotta work for it.
Yeah, you got to work for it. It helps you, combat some of the other messages, the more unrealistic messages.
I think the world we live in today with social media and all of the stuff we see kind of give us a false impression about life.
It's very scary.
And everyone wants to make it overnight. Delayed gratification is something that it doesn't even exist in many people's dictionary anymore. Like
It doesn't.
If I can buy it now, why wait till tomorrow?
And that's the thing. Even in the context of DJing, one of the comments that I get a lot is, "Oh, you just blew up. You just blew up so fast." Da 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 da. To you, maybe that's what you think, but nobody was there when I was practicing at home by myself.
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours. No one was there when I used to play for free, on the university campus, or when I got my first gigs at events that were empty because they, when you first start, they give you the early slot. No one's there, but you're still playing as though the room is full. So again, and sometimes people will message me and they won't ask me things like, "Oh, how can I improve my skills?" They'll ask me, "How can I just blow up? I need to..." And I'm sitting there like, no. That's not the first step. The first step is loving what you do, being good at it, and, the reward will follow.
Thank you. What has being a man mean to you?
That's a very good question. I think the first word that pops up in my head is accountability. I think for me, being a man is, especially because I'm 27 at the moment, I think being a young man at the moment, what it means to me is giving your best, understanding that you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but taking ownership of them and learning from them.
Let's talk about relationship. Being a DJ, you're exposed a lot. It's a lot of ladies and stuff like that. Sometimes if care is not taken, if not managed, find yourself entangled. What we call entanglement. How to manage that though?
So this is something that I get made fun of a lot in the DJ world.
I was watching just today, I was watching some of your gigs. There's one you did in Cycle or somewhere.
Okay.
The one you did at there's this power station setup.
Oh, cyber.
And it was a cool setup. And then obviously also surrounded by girls. I was like, okay, brother, talk to me.
Do you know, it's really funny because it's always funny to watch the videos back, because in the moment, I actually don't even realize who is even next to me because you're so focused on what you're doing. But outside of that, again, this is why it's important to remember why you do things. And I've always told myself the moment I've forgotten why I'm doing something, it means it's time to let it go or move on. But one of my golden rules is that with DJing, if you ever see me at an event, as soon as my set is finished, I'm out the door. I never stay. I don't come extra early to events. I don't stay extra late. The moment I finish playing, I'm out the door.
Why do you do that? When you want to network with, get to know your audience?
Yeah. So initially when I first started, I would go early, I would network and things like that. But now it's more of a preservation thing. I think if you indulge too much in, I guess, the stereotypical lifestyle that comes with these things. You won't be able to do it for long because it's already a lot of late nights. It's already, you know, quite intense socially as well, and just dealing with, you know, all the variables that happen on a night. I think at the stage that I'm at now, you know, I've done like a lot of networking and things like that. So for a lot of events, I'm able to, you know, people know the value that I add. And yeah, I can go in and do my job and then, yeah.
Don't you get stopped, but people wanted to get to know you better, you know, contacts, How do you go about that?
Well, usually, if that does happen, it's usually before I play. So my rule is I try and get to an event an hour before my set, mainly because I want to hear what the DJ before me plays. So I'm not repeating the same stuff. And usually in that hour, that's when I will, you know, speak to the promoters, shake hands, talk to people. But a lot of inquiries I get with networking is usually online. And I think that's the thing. Nowadays, you know, people have access to you all the time. So, yeah.
Tell me about your wife. Tell me about her. I'd like to know.
So she is also an entrepreneur as well. Where do I begin? Very good sense of humor. I think that's kind of what brought us together, to be honest. And, you know, I remember someone always said, you know, you got to find someone that can make you laugh. And I think that's so important. Very charismatic. She has her own business. She does bridal makeup. Her business, I think she started when she was 18. It started with a few friends, you know, she would do makeup on them. And now it's, you know, grown into a very successful business. Yeah. What else?
How did you guys meet?
Oh, so she is also very good at visual art. So we met in April 2019. What's the name of this event? It was an event called, I think, the African Collective. So that night, she was actually speaking to some of her art pieces. So she's very good at visual art. She went to high school with someone that I went to primary school with. So we had a mutual friend. And that night, that person had actually introduced us, and that's how we met. Yeah. And then the following week, that same person was celebrating their birthday. So then we were both there and we started talking, and, you know, we figured out we had a lot of similar interests, and yeah. And then things just developed from there.
As the first son, often the wife of the first son becomes the daughter to the mom. You're the only son, I understand.
Yeah.
What's the relationship between her and mom?
That's a good question. We might have to skip this question.
Okay.
Yeah.
About her and dad?
Might have to skip this question as well. Yeah, might have to cut this one out.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of father did you hope to be, though?
That's a very powerful question. What kind of father do I hope to be? I think the type of father that I would like to be is the type of father that provides a safe space at home. I want to be the type of father that promotes an environment where my children know that as long as they are at home, no matter what's happened, even if they're, you know, in trouble, or even if something has happened, that home is the place that they can always come to.
What does home mean to you?
Belonging. A place that you belong.
So you belong home?
Not necessarily a physical place,
yeah.
But yeah.
If that was listening to this, what would you like them to take away from this conversation? Your parents?
Oh, that's a good question.
If you were to speak to him directly,
Mm.
your heart, what would that be?
I think I would, I don't know, want him to take away, I guess, the whole conversation. I think this, you know, it's a side of me that, you know, we don't necessarily talk about all the time, especially my creative side. And I think, yeah, just understanding what it is that, you know, being a creative entails, and yeah.
One word you want him to take. Speaking to him directly, right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
What would that be? Speak to me as you speak to that.
Mm.
On whatever, maybe on the relationship side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do feel there's something in there that can be addressed,
Mm-hmm.
or that should be addressed rather.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe conversations have not been had about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to talk to him directly,
Mm-hmm.
what would that be?
That's a good question. I would say that I'm trying to find the right words. I would say that I guess the core values that he and mum have instilled in me, they're not as, I hold them closer than they think. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Would you be open to having a seat? That's why I told you earlier we're trying to have a conversation. We're trying to create a season where we'll put dad and son together in a room
Mm-hmm.
to talk to themselves. Would that be something you're interested in?
Not sure.
Why?
I'm not sure.
I'm curious.
I'm not sure. I don't know at this stage.
Do you think he will be? He will be?
I'm not sure. Genuinely, I don't know.
But you'd agree there's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know if there's a conversation that needs to be had before that conversation, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any question for me though? Your turn.
So what was your process in terms of coming up with the concept for, you know, this podcast? And how long have you had this idea for?
I've had this idea. I've always wanted to create content, not show expression essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried quite a few formats. I've tried different. All right.
Mm.
And then I stumbled on the podcast. Steve Bartlett is a big mentor of mine. I listen to him a lot. And one day I was this guy was like, just go and create. It's like I felt as if I was talking to me directly. Just go and start it. Just go and create it. Just go and create it. So I woke up, I'm going to try this. And so last year, 2 years ago, so 2 years now, 2024, till about November, I did a trial run where I had 4 friends. You know, we did like fortnightly a shot. For me, it was, let me see if I would even like this thing. And so I did it, and I liked it. And the year after, I set up this race for it. You know, and I said to myself, I'm going to do this every week, so long as I'm able to do it.
Yeah.
Because I believe there are a lot of stories that go untold, that are never going to be told if we don't have places like this, especially for us as migrants. I honestly believe as young people, we need to talk to ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to talk to our parents, as well as our parents need to talk to us. Oftentimes, these conversations don't happen at home, as you would understand.
Yeah.
You know? And I want to create a place where we can have these conversations, either directly or indirectly. Many of the things you said today will apply to many young people like yourself that were born here.
Yeah.
You know? And as well, many parents will listen to this, will tune into this as well, they'll pick up 1 or 2 things. But most importantly for me, it's sitting these people together. Let's talk. It's not for viral moments, never. But it's just, let's talk about issues that have not been opportunity to talk about at home.
Definitely. I think,
Yeah.
and I think it definitely would help reduce that stigma around having these types of conversations.
Because our parents don't talk. And I don't blame them.
Yeah, and I think this is why it's very difficult, because unfortunately, when you don't have these conversations, it builds a lot of negative feelings.
Resentment.
I didn't want to use the word, but yes, resentment. And sometimes you can actually let go of all of that resentment, even if you can just say what it is. And just by being able to have that conversation, whether or not you even see eye to eye, the fact, sometimes even in a disagreement, just the fact that that person is just listening to you is enough to go,
at the end of the
okay.
day, we're all adults, right? You're going to choose your path,
Mm-hmm.
just like he's choosing his, our parents have chosen theirs.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying to someone, he's a pastor, so I was saying to him about his son. He's saying to me about his son, rather, like, he said to his son, I've raised you up to the 18th year. He's like 2021 now.
Mm-hmm.
I've raised you up, you're 18 now. I've done my best for you. If you decide whatever life you want to believe, that thumbs up.
Wow.
At this age, I'm no longer responsible for you. Like, legally, you're not an adult, so you can make decisions and choices. And it is my hope that you would draw from the trainings, the leadership, whatever it is I've taught you all through these 18 years, to guide your next, couple years after. But if you decide not to, well, that's fine. I can't be guilty I can't feel guilty for those decisions. But that's like honest.
But I think that's a very like interesting approach in a good way. I think the fact that he's able to say that to his child and say, look, I've invested in you, and what you do now is up to you. But you'd hope, I mean, the goal of every parent, I would imagine, is to raise children that are independent, right?
Yeah, of course.
Children who can fend for themselves, who can,
make mistakes and retrace themselves.
But also, I think it's just that fine balance, isn't it? Where you want to raise your children with the confidence to take on the world, but also if you give them, enough independence, they will eventually come back to you.
If you have done the right job.
If you have a healthy relationship with your parents, you will defer to them when you're making big decisions. You'll defer to them. You will ask for their advice. I think what the problem is when you have a child who is an adult, but the way you treated them when they were, I don't know, let's say 14, and the way you treat them when they're 24 is the exact same. That's where they might try and overcompensate and, do things, and maybe make more mistakes than they needed to, because they try and fight back.
I also do, I'll pose this question to you. Look, a few parents do feel guilty for some of the wrong decisions their kids have made over time.
Interesting.
What do you have to say to that? Because I've heard this a lot from, the community, I've heard this a lot from older parents.
Wow.
Sometimes you feel you've not done the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You've not raised this kid well, especially when they grow up and they start acting certain ways, doing certain things. Feel the sense of, I've let this kid down and things like that.
Yeah. I think it's a really tricky one. I would imagine, I'm not a parent, but I would imagine I'd probably feel that way. No one wants to see their child struggling with something or making mistakes, especially mistakes that are avoidable. But I would say that, there is an element of responsibility, on that child, especially if they're an adult. And if you truly did the best that you could, that's what you can ask for. Every child's going to make mistakes. And there are some mistakes that are just very unfortunate,
Thank you. I think it's a good place for us to end it properly now.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Adeboii.
Thank you very much for having me
on this podcast. I'm going to do one last thing.
Sure.
I'll do it rapid fire. I haven't done this before for anybody. I'll do it with you.
Okay.
One answer, straight answer. Don't think about it. Afrobeats or piano?
I'm a piano.
Club sets or wedding sets?
Club sets.
Approval or authenticity?
Authenticity.
Lagos or Perth?
Lagos.
That's gonna kill you. Thank you so much, Adeboii, for coming on the podcast. Hope you had as much fun as I did.
I did. Thank you very much.